Greetings and salutations, and welcome to this episode of the Playwright Spotlight. Before we begin, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to this channel, smash that like button, share this video with a friend or playwright you'd think would enjoy the information we provided, and leave a comment down below if there's information that we haven't covered in past episodes, or if there's playwrights you'd like featured in future episodes, or heck, just say hi. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcatcher, be sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a 5-star review. With all that out of the way, let's get on with the show. My guest today is an award-winning playwright with an MFA in playwriting from the Playwrights Lab at Hollins University and is an instructor of theater in Georgia. Her plays are available at StageRights, YouthPLAYS, Polychoron Press, and the New Play Exchange. She is a member of the Dramatists Guild, Working Title Playwrights, and Southeastern Theatre Conference. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Laura King. Hey, thank you so much for coming on to the Playwright Spotlight.
Pleasure.
So, how did you get your start? What made you want to choose playwriting?
Well, I've always been involved in theater ever since I was like 12 years old. And like all of us, I would act in shows. And then I ended up moving to a rural area of Georgia. And I did one show and I just could not do it anymore. The driving was too much. It was crazy. So I took a playwriting class because I still wanted to be involved, and I fell in love. I mean, I've always been a writer, and I make my living as an editor. And when I took this class, just something clicked, and I decided if I wanted to do this, I needed to learn how to do it right. So that's when I went to Hollins University, and I did their low residency, high intensity playwriting program, their MFA in playwriting, which is 4 to 5 summers, and from instructors all over the country. And it was a wonderful experience. And then from that point on, it was no looking back. I just kept writing.
So I want to, there's a few words you used in there that I want to touch on. You wanted to do it the right way. What is the right way? Is there a right way when it comes to playwriting?
That is a very hot topic. I mean, if you go on any Facebook board about playwrights, there's the anti-MFA group and the pro-MFA group. I'm from a family of educators, and so to me, if I want to do something, I need to go study it. I mean, it's just the way I grew up, and I'm a firm believer in getting educated about anything you want to study. Whether you do an MFA or not, or whether you take a playwriting class online. But for me, I really wanted to immerse myself in playwriting. And the best way to do that was, after research, was at Hollins. And I fell in love with Hollins. And it was intense, but I got so much out of the program. And it really just helped me become a playwright. And I'm still learning. I'm still taking as many classes as I can, doing as many online programs as I can, and, doing research into what I can try next.
Sure. And you also said intense. So what made it intense?
Well, I think it's because it's a 2-month program in the summer. I think it's 6 weeks in the summer, and we just have to pack so much into it. So I would take 4 classes in the summer. One class, I love this class. It's called First Drafts, and we would get a prompt on Thursday, and by Sunday night we will have had to have written a full-length play. So, yeah, I know that's the expression we always get. And it's terrible. Wow. Yeah, but it's so exciting. Our teacher would always say, it doesn't have to be good. It just has to be done. So that's my quote from Todd Bristol at the Playwrights Lab. And it taught me what is possible. It taught me how to write a first draft. It taught me if I got a commission, or if somebody called me and said, hey, I need a play for this. I could produce something. Wouldn't necessarily be good, but I could produce a first draft in that short amount of time. And then I could get to work on making it good.
So on that note, what's your process?
My process, I have a million ideas in a day, and I don't sit down to write one until it's stayed with me for a while. Like if something is swimming around in my head for about a month, I decide, okay, this is something I need to explore. This is something I need to write. So then I'll sit down, and I try to do that first drafts process where I sit down and I just try to write, even if it makes absolutely no sense, even if I think it's the worst thing in the world. I try not to stop myself. I think a lot of writers will start something and then give up because they think, oh, this isn't working. This isn't good. But I think you have to push through that. And I think you have to write as much as you possibly can. And then after you get that first draft, whether it's great or crap, you can make your decision. Am I going to move forward with this? So that's really my process, just getting it all out there and then deciding, okay, there's something here. Now I really have to get to work on it.
And what's the next step once you decide it's good to go?
Yeah, then I do a draft. Then I go through and try to put the pieces together and see if I can figure out what the journey of the play is, not just the main character, but the whole journey of the play. And then, so I do a revise, and then I really need to hear it. So whether I can get a reading, I belong to different writers groups. If I can get a reading with professional actors, that's the best possible scenario. If I can, I just call my friends, say, come over, let's sit in my living room. Let's read this play because I need to hear it. Then after I hear it and I'm taking, copious notes, then I do another draft. And then if I hadn't at that point had a professional reading, with professional actors, I try to get that done. Do another revise, and then I start submitting.
And where do you submit?
Yeah, well, I belong to a number of different groups that help me find submission opportunities. There's Play Submission Helper, which is I think it's a $10 fee per month, and it just lists all the opportunities. There's a New York writers playwright blog. There's different women's theater groups. So just go on Facebook, there's lots of posting about opportunities. So I look through all those. I used to be like fiendishly submitting to everything. I'm a little more choosy now that I've been doing it a while. I really try to find my play is a good fit for this opportunity. So I'm going to go ahead and send it here. That
was my next question. What makes you decide to choose?
Yeah, I think in the beginning, it's good to submit a lot because it's hard to break in. I started by writing a lot of 10-minute plays because I think there's a lot of opportunities. A lot of theaters will produce evenings of 10-minute plays because they can make money. They pay a little bit to the playwrights and they have tons of actors that are involved, directors that are involved. So they're going to fill that house. So I did that for a while, and then I realized it was taking away my time to really work on my full lengths. So I made a conscious decision, which was hard, to stop doing 10 minutes for a couple years and just to really work on my full length plays.
Do you have a preference between your 10 minutes, your one acts, and your full lengths?
Yeah, I love, my preference is a 90-minute full length with no intermission because I think they're highly producible. I tend to, because I'm an editor, I tend to really chop my plays down. I really look for, I don't need this, I don't need this. So I tend to write 90-minute plays a lot. I think I sort of specialize in 90-minute comedies. And because they're the easiest things to get produced. Community theaters want that, professional theaters, if they're going to do a comedy, they're going to be able to fill their house.
What, so I want to go back real quick. There's so many things I want to touch on in both these segments, but I do want to go back to one thing real quick in your process. When you're spewing it out just to get that first draft done and you're not quite sure if there's anything there, how do you know when you're done then?
Oh, you're never
with that first draft. How do you know? I'm like, all right, that's the ending.
Yeah, I know. I think as a playwright, you're never done. Even after it's been published, like my published plays, I'm like, oh, I wish I could fix this. I wish I could change this. I wish I could do this. Because you learn as you go along. The first draft for me, it's just if I come to the end of the story, even if it makes no sense, if I get to somehow I've made a whole journey. I know it's going to change, but if I get to the point where I'm like, okay, I can see a story here, that's when I think that first draft is done. But I don't think plays are ever really done. I learn stuff every production I see. And sometimes I direct my own work, which is great because you learn a lot, but it's also really frustrating because you learn everything you did that you want to fix or change. But I learned,
make those changes though right then and there, if in those moments, or do you prefer not to?
I can do that because it's my play, but I wish I could get it in the published version. If it's been published, it's sort of too late.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got you. Okay. This isn't first draft. It hasn't gone anywhere yet.
Exactly. Then I make all the changes I want. Yeah.
So now going back to the other conversation, what makes a play producible in your mind?
Wow. That's a tough question. It's an interesting question too. When I went to grad school, there were so many playwrights writing beautiful, beautiful work. And I'm writing these like wacky comedies, but I sort of made that decision because I knew the theaters in my area. I'm in Atlanta now, and I knew the theaters in my area. I sort of studied what they were doing, and I made a conscious decision to try to write something they would produce. And starting out off, it was community theaters, and community theaters produce a lot of female heavy comedies. I mean, if you live in the South, if you haven't seen Steel Magnolias 132 times, because that's what they do. Dixie Swim Club, I think it just changed its name, Sweet Magnolia Swim Club. Yeah, good, strong plays get done all the time in Atlanta and the surrounding areas. So I thought, well, okay, I'm going to write something like that because I don't want to just write in a vacuum. I mean, that's not what theater is. Theater is, plays are written to be performed. They're not novels. So I started writing comedies, and I tend to, as you can tell, I talk really fast. I think quickly. So, so that's how I write too, like really sort of choppy, overlapping dialogue, which works well with comedies. So I started writing those, and I found that community theaters would pick them up, and some competitions. The way I broke into getting published was through different competitions. My first play that I wrote, the first play I wrote and was produced, it's called Independence Day at Happy Meadows. And it's about 4 old women busting out of a nursing home. And it won it's like Golden Girls. It won the Southeastern Theatre Conference Ready to Publish Award. And so because it won that, it automatically got published, which was great because then it was repped, and it's been picked up a lot. It's getting produced a lot. I mean, it's got 2 productions coming up in April and June of this year. So that's been exciting. And I have another play that was just published that won the American Association of Community Theater New Play Fest contest. They pick 6 plays out of all the submissions, and different theaters across the country produce them. Mine's a comedy. It's a dramedy, I guess. It's called The Cayuga Canal Girls. And it was produced in Connecticut, and it's now been published. And so it's getting a production. Now that it's published, it's getting a production in New York, which is real, not New York City. I'm still working towards that. Sure. But it's been picked up in New York, so that's good. So, I mean, I just recommend writers who want to get produced, consider writing comedies and submit to competitions, because it's a great way to break in.
What do you think? What's some comedy advice for people who want to write comedy who may not think they're funny, who do think they're funny and they're not? It's like, so what are some of the rules when it comes to writing comedic plays?
I love that. Who think they're funny and they're not.
I know a lot of those people.
Don't we all? Yeah. I think with comedy, more than any other play, you have to hear it aloud. So have as many readings as possible to see what lines land, and also respect and listen to your actors. I learn so much from actors when I hear a reading. The first time I heard my Happy Meadows play, it was an early draft, and this female actor just brought this amazing energy and different understanding of the character. And I was like, oh, okay, this character has a military background. I didn't know that. The actor told me that in her performance. So as a playwright, actors are your best friends. I mean, directors are great too, but there's something about an actor saying a line. And even if you can't get professional actors, sometimes professional actors can make your lines work when they really don't work. Right. So sometimes amateur actors are even better because, okay, that line's funny no matter who's saying it. So actors really, really help with playwriting.
What comedic style do you do everything? I mean, is it puns? Is it just wordplay? Is it setup and punchline? Or do you write farce?
Yeah, it borders on the farcical. I do a lot of wordplay just because that's what I like. I like movies with wordplay, and so I do a lot of wordplay. I do a lot of one-liners. Sometimes I do physical comedy. I tend to write for older women, so I need to be careful about doing too much physical comedy, making sure it's still within their physical abilities. But yeah, I really like that snappy patter dialogue. I like taking characters and putting them in sort of a ridiculous situation and finding their individual voices and then giving them those zingers. I love a good zinger.
Sure. Especially the coconut raspberry ones.
all the best. But
if anybody even knows what a zinger is anymore.
I know.
You said that one of the competitions you did was Ready to Publish.
Mm-hmm.
Now, are they the ones that publish it, or they just shop it around for you? Say, hey, we watched this, or we performed this. We think it's great. We think you should, and then we get just somebody to say yes. It's a
great competition through the Southeastern Theatre Conference. You don't have to be a member to submit. It's put on by StageRights, which is a smaller publishing company. Their big title is The Marvelous Wonderettes. And the company was started by the author of Marvelous Wonderettes. And he's just really grown his company. And they thought, oh, well, here's an untapped market. All these theater people in the Southeast are going to this huge conference. So they decided to run a competition. My play, Independence Day at Happy Meadows, won the first year, and the competition's just grown and grown and grown. They do comedies, they do musicals, but their award winners aren't necessarily comedies and musicals. The winner this year was by a friend of mine named John Mabey, and he wrote a play called A Complicated Hope, which is a really lovely play. Not a comedy, it's a drama. Actually, he won the Getchell Award. Sorry, different winner this year. My other friend, Stephen Stratford. I'm on the Southeastern Theatre Conference, so I have I'm on on the chair of the publications committee, so I have a lot of different things going through my head at once. But yeah, Stephen Stratford is the playwright who won the Ready to Publish Award this year. We did a reading of his play at the conference, and it was a lovely play. It was a comedy, also with some serious elements to it. But because of that, it'll be published. So like, here's my play. They publish it in the book form, and then they rep it. So anybody who wants to produce it can go through StageRights and get the rights to do that.
Have you done the Last Frontier Theater Conference?
I haven't, and I'm so curious about that. I've had a lot of friends that have done it, and it looks so exciting to me. I'd love to do that one time.
Well, yeah, because I would love to compare and contrast the two, the Last Frontier and then Southeastern Theatre Conference. So tell me more about the Southeastern Theatre Conference.
Yeah,
how does it,
it's more than just playwriting. It's got so many different elements to it. Because it's a huge organization, and it has a lot of college students, some high school students, professional theater, and it's all different workshops. So we have acting workshops, writing workshops. Our main journal we put out is Southern Theater. There's also a theater symposium, which is an academic journal. And then there's the playwriting contests I mentioned, the Ready to Publish, which Stephen Stratford won. And we have the Getchell award-winning playwright, which was John Mabey this year. So there are awards given to different playwrights, those two main awards. It's a great organization. I've been involved with it for a while. I used to be the chair of playwriting, and then I moved over to the publications committee because I just sort of felt like that's what I do all day long, editing. So that might be a good fit for me. So yeah, it's a great organization for anybody in the Southeast that wants to be involved with theater and take workshops and learn more from professionals and academics.
How long is it, and when does it take place?
It takes place once a year. It usually goes from a Wednesday to a Saturday, with all different playwriting, acting, musical theater, workshops. There's a community theater festival. There's a 10-minute play festival. Like students in high school and colleges bring their shows there. So it's huge. I mean, It's a huge conference, but it's really exciting and it's fun just to be around all those theater people again.
Well, you had mentioned also for people that are in the South, I mean, can anybody go, or is it really just like, you live too far away? Sorry. Yeah, yanked?
No, anybody can go. Yeah, we have people from all over. It's based in North Carolina, and it just covers the Southeast. It covers mostly those colleges, but yeah, anybody can go.
Once a year, a Wednesday through Sunday. And what time of the year is it?
Did you
say that?
I did it. It was was it in March? Let me see. Yeah, it was in March. I did it the 9th through the 12th. Yeah. So check out their website, SETC.
Absolutely. So going back to Hollins, how did that help you? How did Hollins really get playwriting ingrained in you, and what did it teach you? What's the best thing it taught you? Is there anything you don't feel that you got out of it that they missed?
I told my our program director, and he always laughs about that, but I told him, like, thank you for my life, because it really did change my life. I was working at home and raising a daughter and living in a small town in Georgia. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I might go crazy. So I needed to find a creative outlet. And I told you I had acted in a show here at Synchronicity Theater in Atlanta, and just, I couldn't do the commute. It was too difficult. So that's when I went to Hollins. What it taught me, and the one thing our program director says to us at the beginning is, well, you're a playwright. And we all hem and haw. Well, I don't know if I'm really a playwright. He's like, have you written a play? It's like, well, yeah. He's like, you're a playwright. And that changed something in me. It made me realize, okay, I need to take ownership of this. I am a playwright. I'm going to be a playwright, and this is going to be my life. And I took that very seriously. So Hollins taught me a lot of things. It taught me to be confident in myself, to own what I know and to seek what I don't know. It opened me up. It showed me I had so many different teachers coming from different perspectives. Like I had teachers from New York who were professional performers and professional playwrights, and they would come to it through a professional lens. I had teachers that were college professors that would come to it from an academic lens. I had a teacher who was a solo performer. One of my dearest friends, who was my teacher there, Nicole Atkins, she was taught a class in theater for young audiences. And I'm a huge fan of YA literature, and I write a lot of TYA plays, and a lot of it is because of her. She was an excellent teacher and really showed us how to respect that audience and to write for that audience without talking down to them. And because of my connection with her and everyone in the class, all our connection with her, she also worked for YouthPLAYS, a publisher run by Jonathan Dorff. And she put together a whole collection of our 10-minute plays, really worked on them with us. We did readings of them. And then that collection got published by YouthPLAYS. And because of those connections, I now work as a literary associate for YouthPLAYS. So a lot of it was networking, and becoming connected with people and showing them what you could do, and them respecting you enough and appreciating you enough to say, hey, why don't you try this? Or, let's work on this collection together. Or would you dramaturg my play? Or So I learned confidence. I learned how to approach a play, and I got a lot of connections.
Nice. Was there like I don't want to say mistakes. Was there habits that you had developed beforehand that was like they broke you up and was like, oh, I never realized that before? Does that make sense? That question?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was a pretty new writer when I started the program, so hopefully I hadn't developed too many bad habits yet. But some things I noticed that I learned at Hollins was I tend to underestimate my audience. So, like if I would throw in that one zinger line, I had to make sure I'd be hitting it hit you over the head with a hammer to make sure you got it. I'm like, no, just let it land. They're going to get it. So I needed to learn to respect my audience more and know that they were going to get that joke or get that point that I was trying to make. So I tended to overwrite. So I learned to step back from that. And I think I learned not to push as much. If I really wanted something to work out, like a lot of women, I just got to work harder. So I learned to step back from that and try to let the play stand for it. Let the lines stand on their own.
So you're doing 6 weeks every summer for like 5 summers.
Yeah.
Is there, especially what year was this? When did you do it?
I graduated let me look over here. I graduated in 2016. So it was the 5 years before that.
Okay. All right. Was it flexible still? I know it sounds intensive, or it is intensive. You already stated that it is.
Yeah.
But I mean, can you go through and actually have a job still and work and do this program? Like, I'm really curious. I've tried to sign up for a couple MFA programs as well, and have not gotten in. Why, I don't know. I thought it was my age, maybe. But that being said,
no age discrimination from Hollins. We have all ranges.
But now I'm wondering that, and I'm wondering how much it's changed now, and how much of it might be online. So I'm curious if the workload is just overbearing. Like, it's like, dude, take 6 weeks off of work to go through this program.
Yeah, it's really good for teachers because they have summers off. I do teach, but I'm not primarily a teacher. I kept doing my job. I'm a freelance editor. So I run my own business. So I kept my clients, and I said, I'm going to have to cut back. I'm going to do edit this many manuscripts this week. I did take the last week of the program off. I'm like, I'm on vacation, which I wasn't. So it's good for teachers. It's good if you can control your own work. Now, some people will take fewer classes and keep doing their work. Some, because of COVID, they have had to do the past 2 summers online. I think they're going back to in-person, but they might be working on a hybrid model now, because some people just need to do that online. So I do think it's doable. I think you have to know what you can do, how much work you can do, and how you can manage that. I mean, I'm used to working at all crazy hours because I've been a freelancer for 24 years. So there were some long nights, where I'd be editing in the middle of the night and then getting up and going to class, but it was worth it for me.
Did you write Kitty from Sawbuck City while you were at Hollins?
That's so funny. That's how I got to know you. Play Noir. Yeah. It was a Hollins event, and we were doing an overnight play festival. And we had prompts, and you got to pick certain prompts. And I love noir, so I picked a noir prompt, and I wrote that overnight. And then they did it. They did it with the other plays. And then I saw your submission call. And I was like, oh, I'm going to dust this baby off. So I took that out and I went through and I fixed it. I keep saying fix. I shouldn't say that, but I revised it. Because I'd written it really fast. So I revised that and submitted it to you. And I was so excited to get accepted.
It was a lot of fun. It was a fun piece to perform or to stage. I didn't perform in that one, but it was a lot of fun.
I love that you do play noir. I think that's so cool.
Well, I'd love to bring it back. And I intend to. The unfortunate thing is my current work schedule is preventing me from producing right now because I'm doing nights and Thursday through Sundays and stuff like that. So both festivals have been put on hold. Not to mention we haven't been able to for the last 2 years anyways. Now that things have opened up, it's still a possibility that I could pull it off this year. Not quite sure, but noir is a very underappreciated genre. And I love to kind of shed light on it. Not like I'm like the expert in noir by any means, but it's been a lot of fun. It was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake that when we started producing, we were just going to do one acts, and I'd done a tongue-in-cheek noir piece that was written by two high school kids. I directed that when they wrote it, and then decided I would love to perform this. And so at the time when I was married, my wife, she's like, well, we're going to do Zone Ranger. Let's just do all noir. And that's kind of how it was. And we had so much fun doing it that we like, let's do this again next year. And then it was just like, after the separation and whatnot, it's like, are you going to do noir still? I'm like, absolutely. Yeah. So we stopped in 2018. But when I started publishing the anthology, it was like, I really miss this. Because all there, like when you're typing out all these plays that you've produced and going through and formatting, like I can hear all the deliveries still. I can see the staging. It's all right there.
Oh, see, that's great. I used to love to look at the pictures you would post, because whoever your photographer was, they had great pictures.
Ed from Lemon Melon Photography, and he does some really wonderful noir pictures. I don't know what I'd do if we ever lost him.
Yeah, they're great.
Because he does a really great thing, and we got some really great faces and stuff for noir. So hopefully we'll kick it back up soon. So hopefully, if not this year, definitely next year. So going back to TYA, how do you approach that? And you mentioned not talking down to them. So how do you decide on subject matter, and how do you, as somebody who's older, relate to them, I guess? Or,
yeah, I think a lot of it is, well, first, I just want to say, I think some of the most exciting work in theater is being done in TYA. I think it's TYA playwrights seem to take big risks, and the best of them really bring something to young people that they need at a given moment in their life. It is hard to write when you're older for young people. I'm lucky enough, I have a daughter. She's 24 now, but I can remember her experiences easier than I can remember my own experiences. So I tend to think of what things she has gone through, things she struggled with. She always jokes with me. She's like, is every play about me? I'm like, yeah, right now they are. So, and it's not that different. I mean, if you think of the things we go through personally, young people are going through the same things. It's a matter of language, we're not dropping F-bombs in TYA plays. Usually, sometimes we do, but not usually. So a lot of it's language and situation and setting. This is going to take place in a high school, or this is going to take place. I wrote a play that took place in the cafeteria of the lunchroom, which I don't know. I was traumatized by my lunchroom cafeteria when I was young, and the school bus. Those things were terrifying to me. So I just try to remember that. And I read a lot. I read a lot of TYA. I read a lot of TYA books. I read a lot of TYA plays. And that gets me into that space again. And I've just always been a fan of that material. It's all, even now, I'm in my 50s. Even now that material speaks to me.
Walk me through how you come up with that idea and then sit down and approach that, because you're writing for a very specific audience. And I definitely appreciate you saying that they're going through the same things we are, but I think at the same time, I feel like because of that growth and maturing, that they're going through so much more, because there's certain things that we've already dealt with that they haven't.
Right.
So,
well, okay, I'm gonna tell you a story about my favorite TYA play I wrote. It's called Meridan and the Mighty Oak. It's a 45-minute, one act, two characters, a girl who's 12 and a boy who's 10. And it's a really, really personal story for me. It's about loss and grief. It's about death, loss, and grief, which is pretty heavy for a children's play. But coming out of COVID, kids are dealing with this stuff now.
Sure.
I mean, it's all around them. And so the play was written because I had lost someone who, a cousin that I was very close to, and we grew up together. And she was an adult when we lost her. But to me, she was my younger cousin. To me, you know, I always pictured her as a 12-year-old, you know, even when she was in her 20s and 30s. So to me, she was always a child. So that was probably the play that came easiest to me. And it's a youth play because it was something I knew I had to write for me. So I started to write it, and I thought, well, I'm just going to write whatever comes out. And it's got fantastical elements to it. The characters are young. And I wrote it, like I told you, my process, I just wrote it. I just wrote it in a weekend. It just all came out. And then I started to, after I got that out, I started revising and then it was lucky enough, it got picked up by two really incredible TYA opportunities. One is called Right Now, and that's in Tempe, Arizona. It's an amazing program. It's with Child's Play, a theater company in Arizona. And I think they bring out 3 or 4 writers. I think it was 4 writers when I went, and they assign you a dramaturg, they assign you a director, they give you a cast of professional actors, and you get to spend a week working on your play. It was heaven. So I revised and revised. I worked with an amazing dramaturg, Gloria Bond Clooney, who's a TYA playwright, excellent playwright. She really helped me. Worked with the director from Imagination Stage in DC named Kate Breyer. Great actors there. So we really developed the play, and I was lucky. Right after that, I went to another opportunity at Northwestern University called Purple Crayon Players, run by students, run by college students at Northwestern. And they have this theater company called Purple Crayon. And we sort of workshopped the play with like young people. We took it to a school, and the young people heard the play. And then they did a reading of the play with an invited audience. So both those opportunities, young people got to see the play, and it was so helpful and so informative. And I remember this young girl was taught, she was probably about 10, and they all really enjoyed the play and were very emotional about it. And I wasn't sure about the right age. And I asked these young people, well, how old do you think people should be to see this play? And the one girl was so sweet. She said, well, my sister is 17 and she thinks she knows everything, and I think she needs to see this play, which I loved. So we told them they were all like our young dramaturgs because they really helped with the play. So one thing I think is crucial when you're writing TYA is to get it in front of young people. Get your play in front of young people somehow. A reading, a production, a workshop production, whatever you can, because they're going to give you the best feedback.
Wow, that's quite insightful. You've said dramaturg a couple times in this conversation. I've only had experience with one once in a production of Arcadia in college, but it's a role that baffles me, that I just, I'm still not quite sure what they do, and I'm still not even quite sure if they're necessary. But it seems like they provide some benefits. So talk to me about that.
Okay, I will definitely talk to you about that because I also do dramaturgy work.
I saw that on your website.
Yeah, through working Title Playwrights, which is a great company here in Atlanta that develops new plays, works with new playwrights. So there's different kinds of dramaturgs. The kind I am is new play development. So they work with living playwrights to help develop their play. So they bring an outside eye. It's usually done before you get to the production point. Well, in new play dramaturgy, it's done before you get to the production point. And they help you see structure. They tell you if things aren't ringing true. They will give you ideas that you can springboard off of. They don't rewrite your play. They don't say, you need to add a scene here and do this. But they'll say, okay, in the opening scene of your play, the character is doing this, but by the end they're doing this. So have they changed at all? What's the journey of your main character? Or just ideas. They'll let you know if anything's problematic. You know, like, okay, well, you said this here. This could be offensive to a certain group, or, you know, this is not the kind of language you should be using here. Although they don't usually say should. So they approach it with a fresh eye. And I think playwrights need that a lot. Like sometimes I needed it for my Merida and the Mighty Oak play. And I was lucky to have Gloria working with me because I was so close to the material. And the play did not start as a 2-character play, but because of the feedback I got, and because of Gloria's influence, it became a 2-character play because I couldn't let go of certain things. You know, I had this whole like chorus thing. It was not working, but I couldn't see it wasn't working because I was so close to it. So that's a new play dramaturg. They're bringing fresh eyes and helping you develop your work. I mean, there's other types of dramaturgs. There's like a production dramaturg who would work with a director, you know, during rehearsal and would watch as the director's working and say, well, you know, they didn't have cell phones in 1945 or, you know, whatever. So that's different. I don't do that kind of work, but I work on new plays and help playwrights develop their plays.
Do you find that there's a lot of work out there for that?
I think it's becoming more common. I think, like you've mentioned, people don't always know what it is. You know, they can't pronounce it, and second, they don't know what a dramaturg does. So it's becoming more common in new play development. And I do think it's really necessary. There's the Literary Managers and Dramaturgs of America Association, which is really at the forefront of this work. And they have a roster of dramaturgs. They post job opportunities for dramaturgs. In Atlanta, Working Title Playwrights has that whole roster of dramaturgs that playwrights can hire. And I end up hiring from that roster a lot. I've worked with a couple of the playwrights on their roster. One in particular, my friend Celisa Kalki, I end up hiring her a lot to help me work on my plays. You have to establish a good relationship. You know, it has to be someone you're comfortable with and someone you're willing to trust your play to. And I think you have to be a strong enough playwright to know, I'm going to take in this feedback, I'm going to filter it, and I'm going to see what I want to do with it. Because you're not going to take everything a dramaturg tells you. You know, Sure. You're going to say, that's not what I want to do with this play. But sometimes they'll say something and you're like, oh, thank you. That's exactly what I needed to hear. So it's becoming more common to work with a dramaturg, I believe.
What's the going rate?
Let's see. I know at Working Title, I think we get about, it's $75. Let me double check that because I know it's different for wherever you work, but it's usually about a 4-hour time slot we do. And it's like $175, something like that.
And how do you get rostered? What makes you a good dramaturg?
Yeah, well, I did a year-long program with Working Title Playwrights. That was a dramaturgy intensive program. It was run by the artistic
intensives.
I know. You know me, education, love it. So yeah, I did this program with Amber Bradshaw, and she's the managing artistic director at Working Title Playwrights. And so we really immersed ourselves. We met every month and we immersed ourselves in new plays. We met with professional dramaturgs and we learned their approaches, tried to take in that information and develop our own approaches. I also, when I was at Hollins, my concentration was dramaturgy. So we learned a lot through our playwrights lab about how to give feedback. We learned there's a Liz Lerman. I don't know if you do this with new plays. There's the Liz Lerman style of feedback where you ask, okay, what works? You ask the audience, what works with the play? What questions do you have? And what didn't work so well for you? What didn't resonate as well for you? And so we follow that procedure when we're doing talkbacks for plays or when we're approaching working with a playwright as a dramaturg, I take that approach and say, this is what really worked well for me. I loved this. And I mean, we try to avoid love and like, but sometimes I'm not so good at that. But I'm like, this worked great. This resonated. And then I say, I wasn't sure about these parts. What is happening here? And I ask questions, and then I give them things to consider. You know, have you thought about this? Because I'm confused by this point, or this isn't resonating, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's a whole, like I said, with intensives and education, it really helps with dramaturgy, because when you're approaching a playwright and you're, especially new playwrights who have really poured their heart and soul into something. I mean, the worst thing a dramaturg can do is just crush a playwright. You know, I think we're here to celebrate playwrights and lift playwrights up and help them do the best work they can do. And I think that's what good dramaturgs do.
Yes, I'm going to agree with that, because again, like I know I wasn't very familiar, and I think it's good, because I think sometimes that people aren't always honest, especially friends. It's they don't want to. They'll be honest with everybody else around. They're not honest with the person who might have written it or performed it or directed or anything. And I think that it's an unfortunate thing that nobody wants to hurt anybody's feelings, but I think it's something that we've kind of strayed away from in our society, that it's just like, hey, it's not my cup of tea. I didn't like it for these reasons or anything like that. And so having that person close to you who can be honest with you about your work, and
yes.
without tearing it down, is huge. It's very important.
And it's crucial if you want to write a play. I mean, you have to have people who are going to be honest with you. And I think dramaturgy teaches people how to be honest without being hurtful. You know, you don't have to be mean about something. And as long as you have a reason, I mean, we always say, don't say I liked it or I didn't like it. That doesn't help anybody, right? If somebody's trying to develop a play, you have to say, I was confused by this, or at the ending, I was left feeling really deflated. Is that how you want me to feel? Because maybe it is, but right. If you're writing a comedy, you don't want somebody to feel deflated by the end. So because we learn to speak that language, sort of the language of new play development and dramaturgy, we can talk to playwrights and talk to each other and help each other without hurting each other.
What are some of the most common errors or terrible habits or things that you find with somebody starting out or beginning playwrights, or even ones that supposedly are established or not established, but experienced? And I get baffled sometimes with submissions that I get, and this person's published or has been performed a zillion times, and I'm like, I'm not. There's a lot of there's a lot of tell in this play, and not very much show. So
well, you hit on one right there. The tell versus show. A lot of writers, especially writers who are segueing, I think, from like fiction writing into playwriting, tell. They tell. We want to see, this. We want action, drama. That happens a lot. Something I've seen, and I've even seen this with award-winning plays, trying to do too much. There's so many threads to follow. Like, oh, this person was shot, and then this person went to jail, and then this person is homeless, and so I'm like, whoa, what's going on? So trying to find the one thing you want to tell an audience and focusing on that. Staying clear and staying engaging, How
do you do that?
Well, I think one way to do it is this is how I do it. Try to do it. There's Freytag's pyramid, which I try to plot all my plays on. And so
I've never heard of this.
Yeah, it's great. You can Google it. It's like there's a million little. I've actually laminated it, and I have it in my.
One more time. What is it? Whose pyramid?
Freytag, Freytag's pyramid, and it shows you the structure of a play. So you start off with your exposition, and then you have your inciting incident. So what's the one thing that kicks off the play? What gets the play going? You have your rising action, the climax of the play, the falling action, and then the conclusion. So it's a really straightforward format for writing a play. Now, this doesn't mean you have to do this every time. I know women tend to write more circular plays, and I tend to do that too, but this is a straightforward structure. So you should be able to take your play and identify what's the inciting incident? What is kicking off the action of my play? And then what's the climax of the play? If your play doesn't have a climax, a turning point, where everything switches, everything turns, then you need to look at your play again. Right? Because that you're building to that high point, and that high point should be the most engaging point of your play. And we used to say in my family, if you watch a play and you get to the end of the play and you say, so what, then there's a problem with that play, right? So it's the big, so what? You need to leave that play thinking, oh, either that was hilarious, or, oh my gosh, that blew my mind, or, oh, I'm going to be thinking about that, or I don't know how I feel about that, or all these feelings. My program director at Hollins used to say, what do you want the smartest person in the audience to be thinking when they leave, and the least smartest person in the audience to be thinking? So you've got to take in that whole audience and give them a journey, give them an experience. And if we leave saying, then we have not succeeded.
What makes an experience?
I think what makes an experience is all those things. Somebody has learned something, changed their thinking, or just had a hell of a good time, right? We go to big Broadway musicals. I'm not going to change my thinking because I saw Moulin Rouge. But yeah, I loved that set and I had fun watching the singing. Those people could really sing, so there's different kinds of theater and we have different expectations for that. I did change my thinking somewhat coming out of Come From Away. I saw this part of the world I wasn't familiar with. I saw kindness, and it made me think the next time somebody's lost or somebody's in need of something, maybe I'm going to reach my hand out instead of walking on by. So just simple things like that, even in shows you wouldn't imagine, changing your thinking. So that's what I think.
What do you think is the most important element in playwriting?
Wow.
Or which one is your favorite to use?
I think the most important thing is honesty.
Okay.
I think we have to. I used to get into a fight with a playwright friend of mine because I think everything is autobiographical, and it drives her crazy that I think that. I don't mean it's literally autobiographical, but I mean it comes from a personal place. So I know everything I write comes from something either I've experienced or from somebody I've met, somebody I know. I write a lot of stuff based on my family, whether they know it or not, but something they've said. So I think as long as we're honest, which is funny coming in theater. I was going to say there's no pretense, which theater is mostly pretense, but I think our writing has to be honest. And I do think that's the most important thing.
How do you do that in playwriting?
You have to be brave.
Honest.
Yeah, you have to be brave. You have to be willing to try to strip away your defense mechanisms. I trick myself into thinking nobody's ever going to read this play anyway. So I like trick myself that way and think, so I'm just going to write this for me. And so what? It's going to be personal. It's going to be crazy. I don't care if I'm hurting anybody's feelings. I don't care if anybody can recognize themselves. And I just write. And I just try to be as honest about myself and about the people I'm writing about that I can, by fooling myself into thinking no one will read it. And then when I go and it gets produced,
that's not being very honest with yourself, Laura.
I know it's true. I'm like tricking myself into being honest. Boy, that's an oxymoron.
what makes success as a
God.
playwright?
I read this article once when I first started playwriting. I wish I could remember who wrote it, but they said you can have a life as a playwright if you have realistic expectations. If you're writing to have your show performed on Broadway, you're going to be writing your whole life and you're going to be constantly disappointed. I mean, think of the new plays that are on Broadway, maybe a handful, and we all know those playwrights and they're brilliant and they deserve to be there. But if you just want to be a working playwright, you can be a working playwright. One of my great joys is I'll go to, I'm published by YouthPLAYS and Dramatic Publishing and StageRights. And when I'm feeling down, I'll go to the YouthPLAYS website and I can look up, here are the productions that have been done of my plays. It'll be a 10-minute play. It'll be a half-hour play. I have a Christmas play I wrote. And StageRights has a little blog with upcoming productions. And so that makes me feel like I've made progress. I've got plays published. People are producing these plays. Theaters are doing these plays. To me, that's success because my dream is to someday have a play produced in New York City. That's my dream. That's what I'm working towards. But I'm not going to be crying in the corner if that never happens because I'm writing plays, they're getting published and they're getting produced. And I feel good about that, So I think you measure your own success. A lot of playwrights younger than me have a lot more time to work towards these things. I started late in life. I was 45 when I went to grad school. I think I was something like that. Yeah. So I'm happy with where I am now, and I'm going to continue to work and work and work to get better at playwriting and to just have more plays produced.
As far as publication goes, how do you go about it? What's your approach?
Yeah. First, I want to warn playwrights. I want to warn not just young playwrights, but new playwrights. Don't publish before think your play is ready. I see a lot of playwrights publishing plays before they've even had a production. And I think that's a disservice to your play. So go through the development process. I know we get so excited to get published, that's sort of the gold standard, but take your time, work on your play, get it to where you think, okay, I've done everything I can with this play. Now I'm going to try to submit it to get published. That's just advice I wish I had known. Like I said, getting published is a lot for me, has been through people I know, connections I have, and through contests. So Happy Meadows was published because it won the SETC Ready to Publish Award. And then I got to know those people and I like those people. And so I had a Christmas play. I'm like, this is along the style of Happy Meadows. This is the kind of stuff they rep. So I just emailed them. I emailed my friend Melody Fernandez and I said, hey, you liked Happy Meadows. Maybe you'll like this play too. You want to read it? She's like, yeah, send it to me. So she read it. She liked it. She gave it to Roger Bean, who's the head of StageRights, and they published it. So that's been a connection. With YouthPLAYS, I working with Nicole Atkins and she's connected with YouthPLAYS, and then I became connected with YouthPLAYS, and I will send them my plays now. And they are really good at saying, okay, this works for us. Occasionally they'll say, if you tweak this, we can publish that. So that works well. And then I entered the American Association of Community Theater contest. And so that collection's been published by Dramatic Publishing. So I'm hoping I start to know them and can connect with them. Now, some playwrights I know who've been at this longer than I have work with agents. They have their agents, and their agents will submit stuff to them. And you do get to that point. I'm not sure I'm there yet. You get to that point where certain submission opportunities, you have to have an agent. I'm not sure I want to do that yet. I can see that coming down the line. I'm just not there yet. A good friend of mine has got an agent, and so her agent will submit for her. So it's all where you are in your career.
What do you think is more important, publishing or producing? Getting your
producing. I think producing is the first thing that's most important. I think you need to get a production of your play, and a lot of publishers won't look at your play until it's been produced. Publishing is great because you reach a much wider audience. I mean, my little website and my Facebook page, I'm not going to reach everybody that StageRights is going to reach, right? That dramatic publishing is going to reach. So that's great if you get to a point where, okay, I think this play is ready to go out into the world. You know, it's like having a child. I'm ready to release it into the world. And so once you're at that point, it's great to be published because you can get so many more productions. You know, like I'm having one of my plays is being done in South Dakota. I don't know anybody in South Dakota, right? So, but they knew StageRights, so they found the play.
I was going to go with this. What's your opinion on self-producing?
That's such a good question. I was sort of a self-producing snob when I started. And I thought, I'm not going to self-produce. I want other people to produce my work. I'm now at the point where I really see the benefits of self-producing, especially if you're in a big urban area, like if you're in New York City. And now in Atlanta, I'm starting to think I'm about to produce a reading of one of my plays. You know, I've submitted it to places. It's 9 women, so it's not an easy It's easy because it's all women, but it's not easy because it's 9. So
you guys are like the new Hollywood. You got tons of actors out there.
I know, which is great. Like I can do it myself because I'm in Atlanta. There's a million actors, so that makes it easy. So trying to go through somebody else's umbrella, like a producing body, is harder, especially coming out of COVID, because everybody's struggling and scrambling and trying to figure out what to do. Also, it depends. You have to find a group that jives with what you write. There's a lot of groups that are really focusing on new upcoming playwrights, young playwrights, different marginalized groups, which is great. But let's face it, like I'm an old white lady, so I have to find somebody who's going to produce old white lady plays. So there's a theater in town. It's a producing space, and I found a company that's been producing through them, and I'm going to try to, I'm working on this, try to do a reading under their umbrella, because they're really open to all different kinds of people, and produce at this theater so I can hear my play, because I need to hear my play. So I'm getting down with self-producing now, because coming out of COVID, it's rough right now. It's rough right now for theaters, and they really got to do stuff to make some money. And, you know,
we lost a ton here.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, a lot of theaters. Yeah, I'm right around the corner of what used to be. It still is, but it's the North Hollywood Arts District, NoHo Arts District. And I would say there's maybe, I would say there's probably 6-7 theaters that are gone, you know, on one street. Where we did Noir, where we did Play Noir, that's gone. Their lease ended, and unfortunately the new landlord didn't want to renew their lease. Supposedly wanted to open up her own theater there or something like that. But the sad thing is that was last June.
Yeah.
That space is still vacant. So, you know, it's a sad thing. So, you know, we'll have to find a new home, you know, so I get how that is. And I think it's probably those bigger areas, you know, that are probably suffering as far as the theaters go. How accessible is it there in Atlanta? Is it pricey to rent a theater? Do you know?
Well, we don't have a lot of spaces to rent, and that's the troubling part. We're working on a Dramatists Guild. We're working on an issue of the Dramatists. I'm the Atlanta regional rep for the Dramatists Guild, and we're working on an issue about Atlanta. And so we were collecting all this information, like, oh yeah, we don't have a lot of places that we can just rent to to produce things. So that's our big issue right now. And I'm hoping that starts to change. We have roll call theater, which is where I'm trying to produce my reading. And Synchronicity Theater has an annex space that we can produce at, but they can be pricey. And that's why you have to try to go through these different organizations. And so they vet your work and they pick what they're going to do. And that's hard because we got a lot of writers out here. So self-producing is hard because of space right now. And I'm hoping that turns around in Atlanta.
Do you know what the rates? Do you know what the rates are there?
Sorry, I know it's a lot cheaper than it is in places like New York and LA because roll call, the rates are low. I mean, he'll be like, okay, give us $100 deposit and then we'll see what happens at the box office, that kind of thing. But we don't have a lot of other spaces.
Interesting. Okay. I guess so they were all over. I mean, there's always, if you could find places that, aren't already booked, 3 months, 4 months down the road.
Right.
Usually they were a dime a dozen, there was always somewhere, give or take, but just depended on what your budget was. So
yeah, I wonder how it's doing in Chicago because they used to have a lot of spaces too. So I don't know how hard they've been hit.
Well, that's good because I was always afraid that I could never produce in Chicago because I'm like, I can't afford that, but I also didn't think I could afford LA. And then, New York, forget about it.
Forget about it.
As far as so we touched on self-producing, and you're okay with directing your own work? Do you prefer
I know.
that? How are you with that?
I know. I'm looking at your face tilting up. I was like, yeah, for me, I like to direct my work early on because I know how I want it to sound in my head. And if I can't get there, I'm like, okay, there's a problem. Now, as I progress, I love to have another director come in and direct the work because then I get so much more. I see how they're approaching it and what they're doing it. What they're bringing to the table. I'm like, oh, I need that. Okay, that works. But at the beginning, like I'm going to direct this reading of my work because at the beginning, it helps me see what I need to work through. So I think both. I think there's pros and cons to both. And that's why I like to do both. I like to direct myself in the beginning, and then I like to bring in a director.
Are you stubborn or are you open to, like, if you have a certain, like, this is how I intended this is how I wrote it, and this is how you're going to do it?
No, I'm not like that. Okay. I'm never like that. No, I try to be really, really open. And I think I achieve this. I think I am really open. I'd like to see what other people bring to the table. I mean, that's the joy of theater. I think it's the most collaborative art form. And so I want to know what other people see in my play. I want to know what other people struggle with when they're delivering those lines. And I think Hollins is good at this, has really taught me how to be a collaborator. And I prize that knowledge, and I think it's crucial. And I worked with my play Cayuga Canal Girls, which won the AACT contest. I went to a theater in Connecticut, worked with a director, worked with a dramaturg, and the director and we all hit it off. We were a great team. And the director and I hit it off so much. He's like, I love working with you. He's going to do another play of mine. He's just like, let's see what we can put in this season. What do you got? Send me plays. So I sent him a couple of plays. He's like, this one, I want to do this one. So we're going to do that in 2023. I'm going to go out there this fall. We're going to workshop it together. And then he's hired another director to direct it in 2023. So that's great. So that made me feel good because that made me feel like I was a good collaborator.
Wonderful. So when you get opportunities like that, then how does your payment work?
Yeah, we just work something out. I do a contract. The Dramatists Guild is really good. They have sample contracts online. So you negotiate. They have a whole pricing system that they recommend. So you look at how big is the theater? What's the ticket price? What's your average audience? How many nights are you running the show? And you work it. I tend to do low. I usually do formula and then cut some off because I'm working a lot with small theaters. I'm also working with theaters that are coming out of COVID. You know, I'm also really grateful to have my play produced early on because I'm not a big name. And I'm getting a lot out of those productions because I'm learning how to revise my play. And now that it's been produced, I can submit it to publishers. So I get a lot out of that production. But yeah, I do charge. I think you do need to charge for your work. You know, I think that's just part of the business part of theater. You know, even if you're working with friends, you know, charge them a nominal fee, but it is a business, right?
What would be a nominal fee?
Well, I just had somebody contacted me. They found a play of mine that's in a collection of one acts, and they said, "Hey, we got students. They want to do your play for 2 nights, and then they want to stream." And streaming is like a whole other thing.
Right, sure.
Yeah, which is a nightmare. But I'm like, okay, they're 2 nights. They're streaming. I'm going to charge them $50 a night and $50 for streaming. I mean, they're streaming for their parents, right? You know, so so I charged them $150. I'm like, it's a one act, so. You know, I just sort of play it by ear, but if you don't want to play it by ear, go to the Dramatists Guild and really look at their formula.
Okay. Formatting. Do you use a program? Do you use a writing program or no?
Yeah, I use Final Draft because that's what was required at Hollins. So, when I first got into it, I was like, oh, do this. A lot of people don't like to pay for formatting programs. I love it because I don't love to pay, but I love the program because it really, I can call up, I'm writing a musical. I can call up this template. I want modern stage. I want traditional stage. So there's a bunch of different templates and I'm used to it now. So I can cruise along. You can use Word. A lot of people use Word. I don't like to use Word because it's too much center, indent, blah, blah, blah,
right.
You know, and Final Draft does that for me. So yeah, I use Final Draft. I know some people use like Celtics, something like that,
right.
But
yeah.
I like Final Draft.
How have you had formatting issues when it comes to publication? They're like, this isn't formatted correctly.
Not too much because I use Final Draft. Some smaller publishers will be like, do you have Word? Do you have a Word doc? I'm like, no, I just have Final Draft. So they have to convert it. But no, I haven't had any issues because when you submit a PDF. So I just print my Final Draft out as a PDF to submit. And then if they want you to publish, they can usually convert a Final Draft to whatever they need, Word doc or whatever they need. So it hasn't been too big a problem.
Yeah, I'm curious. I've tried to get on with Dramatists Play Services to try to get them to come on because formatting baffles me because it's not printed out how they ask for it to be. You know what I mean?
Right.
The format's totally different. If you look at how they want it delivered, that is not how they publish it. And I'm like, why? I just think it's misleading. So, and that's why I'm kind of curious if it's in demand at some of these I don't want to call them lesser publishers. I'm sure they're just as good, if not better. Yeah. Small.
Yeah. I know because they print them with the character name, colon, and then, and it's done differently. But I think they're used to getting submissions that follows that traditional.
Exactly. But that's how you printed it. So, of course, that's what people think they're supposed to do.
I know. But go to the Dramatists Guild website, too, because they show you standard play formatting. So it's got it right there, and it shows you this is how you need to format your play, and then the publisher can do whatever they want when they get it that way. Yeah.
What's the best piece of advice you would give, or that you already give new playwrights?
To new playwrights?
Or even experienced playwrights?
Best piece of advice.
Or is there anything that resonates with you that you always like tap into?
I think it goes back to what I told you before. Be brave and be honest. A lot of young writers, I used to teach playwriting, and a lot of young writers, new writers, in my case, they were young, but in new writers, would try to write things that were just highly dramatic, because they thought that's what a play was. And yes, your plays do have to have drama, but they weren't in any realm they weren't coming from what they know. They weren't coming from a place of honesty. And, you know, people always say, write what you know, but that's not literal. That doesn't mean you have to literally have, you know, robbed a bank if you're writing about bank robbers, but you have to find that kernel of truth. You know, you have to find that, is it about bank robbers who are frightened? You know, then remember, when were you afraid? You know, what are they afraid of? Can you remember that feeling of fear? So I think plays need to come from a core of honesty and truthfulness. And if you can find that within yourself and then communicate that through your words, then that's the main step you need to take.
Where can people find your work? Or
yes, go to my website, laurakingplaywright.com. Yeah, I list my productions that are coming up, and you can link out to all my published work.
That's great. And are you working on anything new now?
I am. I always try to have one I'm working on that I'm just starting to write, and then one I'm revising. So I always try to have two in the hopper in case one is really bugging me. I go to the other one. So I have working on a play now I'm trying to get a reading of. It's called Uncovered, a mostly monologue play about women in books. And it started as just all monologues, women meeting at a book club. And now it has a structure that's sort of connecting the monologues together. And this is the play I told you about that's 9 women. So I'm trying to get a reading of that play, trying to set up a reading of that play. And my newest play I'm working on is it's not really an adaptation, but it's an homage to Much Ado About Nothing. And it takes place in a theater in Westport, Connecticut in the 1930s.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, period piece.
I know you like the 30s.
Of course, absolutely. How can I not? Wonderful. Well, Laura, thank you so much in sharing all your valuable information on the Playwright Spotlight. And hopefully we can do this again.
Oh, it was super fun. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I did. Bye, James.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Playwright Spotlight. Again, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video. If there's a guest or subject matter you'd like covered, or at least want to say hi, be sure to leave that comment down below. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcatcher, be sure to subscribe and leave a 5-star review. And in the meantime, and until we see each other again, keep writing.